People need an income that's guaranteed to them.
If you lose money to taxes, you're never getting that money back.
You need to get serious about adding some lower risk.
Greed. I don't like greed.
The thing to be afraid of, honestly, is the thing that we're not thinking of, the black swan event.
There's a tsunami coming. Bye.
Welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Just coffee talk.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? You have to stay focused.
A fun and informative look at the issues of wealth, retirement, and protecting your life savings.
These advisors out there that were trained to sell, and have all these fees. They don't want to talk about this product, so they make less money.
And now, Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Hello again and welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. My name is Randy Cook. Each week, Charisse and I sit down here and talk through some of the issues of retirement. We may talk about some of the financial news and the things going on Wall Street. But what you're really concerned is, what do I do when I get into retirement? I've been working my whole life and saving money, and now I don't know where to go with this. What am I going to do with my time? How do I make my money last? What do I do with Social Security and Medicare? All these different things that come up. That is why we have this show. Charisse has been helping people with those issues for an awfully long time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
All right.
I got to tell you, this is the second year I've taken the kiddos and a friend to the Georgia-Florida game.
Right.
And we do have bull gator seats that are not mine because I know everybody's like, oh, those are expensive. A buddy of mine gives them to me, and he happens to be from Georgia.
Oh, you were in the Georgia section then.
I was in the Georgia section, and this is the second year. My kids are like, Mom, how come we're in the Georgia section again? Didn't we have to leave by the end of the third quarter last year because you were like a little worried about how rowdy they were getting? I went, yeah, we're probably going to do the same this year. And we did. Right after the third quarter, we left. There was consistent bad calls on the Bulldogs. And there was these two guys, you can tell they're with their wives, and they're sitting there and play by play. They're literally directly behind me. And every play by play, they would be complaining about the coach. Why did they do this? And they'd be like, the ref did this, and that's not right. And everything they were saying was right on. And I finally, during the break, I went, you guys are really right about everything you're calling here. They're like, well, thanks for being such great Gator fans and not annoying. Because we would clap we weren't hooting and howling. But they were gentlemen. They were super nice, but they got louder, and the people around us got louder because some of those calls got worse. Nevertheless, the kids are like, Mom, next year, can you please get tickets in the Gator section so we can jump up and cheer and be wild like everybody else at these games? I'm like, okay,
yep.
I will.
Yeah, it's a little tough being a fish out of water when you're in those situations.
I know. This is good training for them, how to manage their excitement around others who don't want us to be that excited, right?
Well,
so
speaking of excitement, Christmas is blowing up all over the place. It seems like 1 week ago I was saying, well, it's September. Let's have our fourth quarter meeting because the year's going to fly by. And here we are, mid-November. It exactly does that. Is Christmas exploding at your house? Do you have the people putting up candy canes and stuff?
So here in the next week, we're already putting lights in the trees. So we're starting the process. We get some lights in right for Thanksgiving weekend, and then the rest happens right after Thanksgiving. But all of my neighbors already have Christmas trees up and all this other stuff. So they really are beating to the Christmas tune this year. And even a few weeks ago, I saw in Ocala, houses fully decorated. I'm like, wow, this is early. I get it. A year after COVID, everybody's out and they were decorating early. But now I'm fast forward. I'm like, this was extra early. So hey, you know what? Those people who are just getting that extra fun cheer early on that want those electric bills to be sky high for 2 months versus just one, then give it to them. I enjoy seeing it.
All right. Well, it is that time of year for sure. But we are here for you at the end of the year in the fourth quarter if it's time for your retirement meeting and to sit down and talk about the issues that have happened this year, or you want to catch up with Charisse. Here's our number. As always, it's 833-368-3680. Well, who doesn't like money coming their way? Everybody likes that. And we've talked about this in the past, how much money will come down from not only our parents, baby boom generation, and money just coming down to grandparents or grandchildren and kids and all that kind of thing. They think it's $90 trillion over the next 20 years.
Good gracious.
It's a lot of money. I've got my hand raised. Okay. Bill Perkins wrote a book called Die with Zero. And it's for people who say, you know what, I'm going to spend my money. It's not important for me to leave a legacy. And when he talks about this money coming down, he says it's not just trillions of dollars. It's trillions of unlived experiences. He said there is such a fear out there right now for people running out of money that they're hoarding wealth. They're not sending it down, or they're just not even spending it. And he said, why do you want to be the richest person in the graveyard?
Yeah, that book is quite amazing. It makes you wake up and smell the coffee. After I read it, I went, yeah, he's right. Like, we work so hard, 9 to 5, sometimes 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., right? Some of us. And we forget, like, we live off our calendars and the tasks. And when you retire and you don't do enough, you don't experience life enough. And then you retire and you're so used to not spending your money in the 9 to 5 grind that you forget that it is okay. You forget to give yourself permission to go spend some of that money and have those experiences, because I'm going to tell you, you're going to be buried with all this money. Right? And somebody's going to get it. And the conversation on the table today is those younger versions of you, their livelihood is based on experiences right now, Randy. Right now, when you look at those 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds, you know what they're talking about? I don't care about making the most amount of money. I don't care about the nicest hotel. I want the experience. And that is amazing to me, because their grandparents and their parents should be having that conversation. And not enough of them are doing that. And these younger versions of you all, they're watching you. And that's why they're like, I don't want to be like that. I need to enjoy life now in case I don't even make it that long, right? And so, moral of the story is, when you retire especially, this is the most important time of your life. What you have been working for the last 30 to 40 years. And don't let it pass you by. And how many of you have heard that over and over and over again, every decade of your being? If you're especially 50 years old or 60 years old, how many of you have heard, you better cherish those moments with your kids because the time's going to fly by and they're going to be in college and you're going to be empty nesters. And then you got to figure out how to know your spouse again. And then the time flies by, and then they have boyfriends, then they get married, then they have kids. And these moments in your life pass by. And by the time you realize it's okay to spend your money and your fear of running out of money is maybe gone, well, the time's going to have passed. Yeah. Body parts are going to hurt. You might not be able to do it. So experience life. I've seen this over and over again. It's like this deja vu over and over and over and over. Sharice, if I could have, I wish I would have met you 10 years ago. Sharice. And it's saddening to me. And this is why we talk more and more about retire sooner. We'll show you the path. We'll give you the map, the journey. We'll show you how to do it right. Now go spend your money. We're going to do this for the first 10 years. Here's your spending plan. So we talk about, first and foremost, besides taxes, your spending plan. What is your spending plan? I use those exact words. I spell that word out for them. And so do all of our teammates and advisors. And the reason why, they're like, spending plan? What's a spending plan? I'm like, okay, so a spending plan is, what are all your bills? And what is all the fixed income that's coming in? Can our Social Security cover all of our bills? If you have Social Security and pension, does all of our Social Security and pension cover our bills? And then some of that pension money, is there leftovers for travel? And so now, if you have Social Security and it doesn't cover all your bills, then we got to look at that bucket of assets that you have saved. And then we have to figure out, how much can we take off of that to pay your bills? And then how much more can we take off of that to enjoy these experiences you've worked so hard for? And some people, we can take an extra $10,000 a year to travel. Some are $20,000, some are $50,000. I've done $100,000. And then I show you on this world-class map we've created, over the next 30 years, what does this spending plan look like with an inflation adjustable spending plan and income plan? Do we or don't we outlive our money? And if we don't outlive our money based on this pessimistic plan, and we show it to your 90 years old, and you still got $1 million there, then we say, okay, is $1 million enough to leave to your kids? That's way too much, Charisse. I'm telling you, Randy, I hear this a lot. That's way too much. They're going to get the houses. They're going to get this. Sometimes we land in the 10 million zone. They're like, oh my gosh, those kids do not need that much money. And then we start talking about legacy planning. So experience your life the right way in retirement. Don't listen to those people out there that say, no, you can't spend your money. You could run out of money. Running out of money doesn't happen really that much anymore, Randy. Markets have been going up. But I will tell you, if markets crash and burn and you pull your money out of the wrong buckets, you could not be in that perfect scenario where we have this glorious spending plan. So not only is that spending plan important and experience life important, but making sure as you're spending your money in this plan, you're pulling it out of the right buckets at the same time.
It's interesting, the reaction to, all right, we got to build a spending plan. A spending plan? What's that? And I think that's the difference. I think people walk in the door of a financial advisor and think that they're going to put me on a budget. And I know a budget is a dirty word. That's where we're just going to figure out what's going in, what's going out, what your expenses are. Let's figure out what the fun money is. I mean, I've got an assignment for y'all, okay? There's this thing, and it's called the internet. And I know it's on your computer or your phone, and you can sit down, and I want you to look up things like Viking cruises, Alaska, Hawaii, Grand Canyon, Costa Rica. There's stuff out there to do. Let's do it. Give us a call. Let's talk about your spending plan in retirement. 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680, or use our website, which is zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. There's a gold box that says complimentary retirement consultation. Big title for let's have a free meeting. Let's sit down and do the math on your retirement and talk about what you want to do. Let's put the money with the dreams. That's the idea. Again, zinniawealth.com. All right, a lot of us go into retirement with a 401k. And one of the things about 401ks is there's not a whole lot of rules there. You just put money in, it grows, hopefully, and then Uncle Sam comes by at about 73 years old and says, okay, time for me to get my cut. So we talk all the time on this show about not using Uncle Sam's plan. Converting money over, using that money, all that. Don't wait till 73. But you know how many people do that? According to JP Morgan, 80% of us don't touch our 401k until Uncle Sam tells us to take the money out.
That's a huge number, Randy.
That's
80%.
nuts.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that big of a number.
It's a huge number. And I mean, I talk to Charisse, I talk to other financial advisors, and there's a lot of different opinion out there. Some people say take part of it and move it over. Some people say take all of it and move it over. Some people say you got to get this done in your 50s because it doesn't help you later. I hear people say you could do it in your 70s and you'll be fine. There's so much opinion, Charisse.
You know what? There is so much darn opinion. And you know what these employers should be doing? They should be bringing people in talking about what's next, what to do. Your RMD phase of life is coming. Because if you're 40 and 50, you're like, oh, I don't really care about this stuff right now. Turning the channel. But when you're 60 and 70, all of a sudden you're tuned in, and you should have already been learning about it before you left those double doors at your employer's office. So I wish our communities and the employers would do a better job of having somebody come in and do like an outreach a day of or a couple hours during lunch where they sponsor the lunches and teach you about, you're about to get this 401k. And now Uncle Sam's your partner. What should you be considering over the next 5 years if you're retiring in 5 years, or if you're retiring in a year? What is the next game plan? What do I need to do with that money? How can I be in a more tax efficient strategy? Are the things I can implement now? But there's really nothing out there like that. And this is why I have a job, because people retire and are like, what do I do now? And they hear my show and they didn't know they had to do anything, but you do need to start considering some things. And so this is why I guess there's so many people that aren't touching it till, they're 73 when they're forced to pull it out. When you're very well working with your employer, you could be actually doing internal rollovers from your 401ks to your Roths. Your contributions to your 401k, you can stop contributing to your 401k and say, hey, I want to put it in a Roth. Hey, and by the way, the match you give me, typically it always goes into the 401k. You can say, hey, I wanted to go into the Roth 401k. And for people who are listening, it's like, what is she talking about? What is a Roth 401k? What is this? So a Roth IRA, Roth 401k, all dollars that go into it you've paid the taxes on it. You don't get the tax write-off, but all the growth inside of it, plus what you put in it, is tax-free in your future, which is the goal to keep you in a lower tax bracket in the future, or a zero tax bracket. How amazing would that be? And so dialing into, what do we do now? If you're 60, if you're 55, if you're 50, you can do things now that are very neat that you couldn't do 5 years ago. And if you're in retirement, boy, oh boy, let's get going. If you're 65, especially, you just retired, you have 8 years for us to play the Uncle Sam game and try to keep as much money in our pocket up until that point. And so I believe that it's so important to really work on that tax strategy, because once you turn 73, it is hard for me to convey and show you the math on why it's important to roll IRAs over to a Roth now, because now you're forced to pull money out, and to even consider rolling IRAs over to a Roth, you got to put more in. That means you got to pay more taxes. And so it's not a friendly thing. So we like to try to capture people either the day before you turn 73, 5 years before. If I could get you 10 years before, oh my gosh, we can do so much with you.
Well, we would love to have that conversation. And I think that's really important, because so many of us are going to go into our retirement, and our 401k is going to be our biggest retirement asset. We want to have some really good thought and treatment of that money. And part of it is to have that discussion about moving money from the taxable area to the tax-free area. And how does that work? Are you a good candidate? Is that something you should consider? Let's do that. We do that with what we call a portfolio x-ray. And that is at no charge or obligation to you. We'll do that for you as we sit down and talk through what you want to do for retirement. We're going to dive into that 401k and find out what's going on. Give us a look on the website, which is zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. There's a gold box that says complimentary retirement consultation. You can click on that box. You'll be on your way. Or you can skip all that and just call 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680. All right, so we talked about this story because this has been making a lot of news, and that is, and it has to do with President Trump. He wants to make other things available to you within your 401k. Some more updated things like Bitcoin, things like IPOs, private equity, some new options, and they might show up in your 401k in 2026. And we've also talked about all three of those things that I just mentioned come with an extra amount of risk. It might be something that the 20 and 30-year-olds do, might not be something that you do as you're getting closer to retirement. That's not what we're going to talk about today. What we want to mention today is, because these options carry extra risk, there is a thought that there might be some people that lose money and then they sue. They would sue Fidelity. They would sue Vanguard. They would sue their carriers for this. So they got to build in some protection. So it is possible, Charisse, that fees on 401ks could go up to offset some of this problem that could happen in the future, and we wouldn't even know it. You could be 65 years old and say, I don't want any part of that, but your 401k fees go up. How would we know that? How would we figure that stuff out?
You know, it's interesting. So this is a good change for a 401k, but it's also a dangerous game to be playing in my opinion. Because number one, especially if you're nearing retirement, I'm going to be very curious how they do this, because like private equity, I think private equity firms, I think if you can invest in them in a very particular way or fund, that's really going to be the best strategy. But private equity, your money can be locked up for a very long time, right? Let's say you retire from your 401k and now you want to invest in private equity. Like it can make money, good money. I mean, I've seen it happen over and over. Like there's a fund out there. I was approached by this fund and they want me to put my clients in it, and it has to do with athletes. And like, for example, they invest in the Dodgers and those types of things. And private equity firms are getting very creative and bringing more to the table for us advisors to offer you, because historically the individual investor, unless you're a accredited investor, you couldn't invest in private equity.
Right.
And private equity can make more than the S&P 500. So we're seeing an evolution take place right now. And every time I start to see this evolution, we kind of just do a standby. Let's watch, let's see. And then you see if there's any really bad noise about it, or is this actually starting to make sense? And it's starting to make sense. But like you were saying, Randy, in your 401k, who pays the price when things don't go well, because not all private equity firms profit, right? This is why we have problems with them. So I'd be curious, what funds there's going to be, who's picking them at the 401k company, and what are the costs? Because there's a cost. There's a price to pay going with private equity.
Yeah,
right?
my wife works for a company, and their company was bought by a private equity firm. And if you take a look at the menu of the different companies that they own, they have nothing in common. They might be an air conditioning company and a court reporting company and a this company and a that company.
Yes.
And basically, it's just one big company that is owning all this stuff. And it's not like, a guy who has run a restaurant for 30 years and it's his life, or a business for 30 years and it's his life and his lifeblood is in it. These are just people that are there buying companies and then selling those companies for profit. And she told me, she goes, I don't know when I want to retire because they tell me that I've got some stock options here, and when they sell, I'm going to get a check. But I have no idea when that is. She says it's usually every 2 years.
Yeah, so there's a liquidity issue.
Yeah.
There's a fee issue. There's a going out of business issue, right? And so when I am vetting private equity type firms, Randy, personally, I'm looking at, okay, if you're gobbling up all these companies, what's the rhyme and the reason? And do you let those companies still run it the way they run it? Or are you going in and cutting all the fat out and thinking that you're going to run it better and then going to resell it in 3 years? And then and then that's when things start to go backwards. So being prudent about the right private equity firms is key, and really understanding, well, which one? Hey, my buddy did this and that's great. He made 20% and he's probably going to make 30% next year. But in the third year, is that company going to be here? Or are you going to be negative when the market's up 20 and now you're so you got to weigh all those things out. And that's something that we do for you. And as you guys get these opportunities in your 401ks, before you just go say, hey, I'm going to bite the bullet, I'm going to do it. Do some homework on it. If you're not sure how to do the homework on it, because that's not your livelihood, then bring it to us. We'll search the firm up for you, and we'll do a 401k x-ray. We'll look at all of your options. We'll look at what you're invested in, and we'll give you some recommendations at the same time. I feel like, especially before you retire, you should have these 401k x-rays, because there are things that so many people come in that they're doing wrong in their 401ks because they just don't know, and they hear their buddy in the cubicle next to them and they go talk at the water cooler, oh, I did this and I got this, and hey, this is new, I'm going to do this, and everybody's like doing what everybody else is doing. And really, you should be listening and talking to somebody who actually does this for a living, that knows how to investigate the company properly, that is prudent and likes to really vet things out. So we want to be careful when that day happens, what your options are. I'm not against them. I think they're lovely. It's just the vetting part is going to be key. So as you see them, and
be careful.
And come get your 401k x-rays now. Start that relationship with us, because right now we'll get to know you. We'll have your file. And when that stuff happens, we can open it up, take a quick call from you and say, hey, okay, we like it. What's the fun? We'll go do the homework for you. That's what we do.
Well, I'd love to have everybody who has a 401k to at least do that. Even if these things don't pop up, you really do want to know what's going on in your 401k. And I think what you hit there is key, because when you look at the performance, you're looking at last year, you're looking at 3 years, you're looking at 5 years back. You don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah. So since we're talking about it, Randy, why don't we make an offer to people who have 401ks that are 55 years and older, that have at least $500,000 in that 401k, for the next 5 callers to get a 401k x-ray. And we'll definitely guide you through some of the questions and concerns and maybe what you're not doing right. And we can see what you could do that could be just an add-on to what you're already doing. And really just analyze the risk to reward. Are you in the right risk level for being so close to retirement? Should we bring back the reins? If we do, what do we invest in? We'll look at what the fees are. Like, or if you have 20 options, or 10 of them have higher fees and the other 10 don't, but they're doing the same things, do we kind of, recharge and put them in different directions, those different funds? So we'll do a complete x-ray on those 401ks. And again, if you're 55 and older and $500,000 or more in your 401k, we will absolutely do that for free.
Here's their website, and here is the number: ZinniaWealth.com, ZINNIA Wealth.com. Hit the gold box there, and it'll open up, and you can schedule the appointment that way, or give us a call, 833-368-3680. And last week, we introduced to you an event that Charisse is basically starting and building for Ocala. It's called the Ocala Leadership Conference, and then there's a website for it, ocalaleadershipconference.com. Lots of great speakers, including John Maxwell, things about inspiring you, inspiring your employees, and just building a good business. And you got to spend a little time with Mr. Maxwell just recently.
I know. I got to hang out with him a couple of weeks ago, and then I got another opportunity to have dinner with him and a few others down south in West Palm. John Maxwell, he's been around for years. He's a leadership guru. He teaches teams, cultures. He's just been around forever, right? And he's faith-based. And the one night we had this dinner, he comes to me, we start talking about Ocala. And he calls me Miss Ocala now.
Miss Ocala, okay.
Yeah. And he says, you're putting Ocala on a map. I'm like, well, I beg to differ. I think the World Equestrian Center put Ocala on the map, but I'm helping in a different lane. All right. And he's like, Cherise, where are you sitting? I'm like, I'm not sure, because there's 4 tables. And he's like, I think you should sit right here. I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't really like my back to the room. And he's like, no, Cherise, I think you should sit right here. And I'm like, I don't know, John. And I was like, I'm going to go look around. And because I thought he was sitting at the big boy table at the front with John Gordon and some of the other big, Mark Cole and all of them, because I saw them sitting over there. And he went, no, Cherise, I think I'm 4 feet. Like, I can see. You should sit right here, because you have to put your name tag in the seat. I'm like, he's really being pushy right now. And I look at the name tag next to the seat. It took me that many times to figure out what he was trying to do. And it says, John Maxwell. I went, oh, John, I'm so slow sometimes. I'm like, I will sit right here. And we sat down. I'm like, you know why I wasn't paying attention or even thinking of what you're asking me to do? I said, I don't like my back to the room. And he's like, you know what, Cherise? What I've done for years is I take the worst seat in the house because I want everybody else to have the best seat. I went, oh, and this is why you're there. Where you're at today, you're amazing. And so he calls me Miss Ocala the next day. He's like, okay, let's talk about Ocala. So I'm going to be speaking at this time, and then you have me doing this Q&A, and then we're going to Chester Weber's for dinner with your sponsors. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I've not had a typical person like this that has me come and speak, have me do so much. I'm like, I know. And I'm like, Chester Weber's going to have your favorite lollipops there, so don't worry about that. And so it's been fun. So this leadership conference, you guys, it's all about, we've just been a successful company, and we wanted to, do something more significantly for our community. And so my mentor and I came up with this grand idea for a couple of years talking about it. And then I was like, let's do it. And then we brought on a couple of amazing partners that are part of it. And we're just working together, and it's just happening. And it's becoming this whole thing across the country that they even had me speak twice in front of hundreds of leaders and visionaries in the room that I wasn't expecting to speak in front of. And now we have people saying, hey, we're coming. That's a day with John Maxwell, John Gordon, Ryan Lake, Chad Robichaud, David West. How did you get all these people here, Cherise? I'm like, I don't know. God, I guess. And so something that they thought, people are just thinking, that's impossible, Cherise. And I'm just like, well, sometimes I don't think through things, and we just go, and you get a couple of good partners who want to help you. And so we're having this great event, January 30th. Long story short, it's going to be so much fun, and it's really raising a lot of awareness around Ocala. And the locals, the companies are so excited. I didn't know all these companies that have these C-suite leadership teams and their employees, they want to bring them there. I got Sika, who wants to bring 35 of their employees from like Tampa and the local area, and Advent, who's our main sponsor. It's like, wow, I'm so excited. Everybody's just excited as we are.
It's coming together, isn't it?
It's coming together. So you can go to ocalaleadershipconference.com, get your seats. They're going fast. It's going to be at Meadowbrook. We're going to try to do it at World Equestrian Center, but Pastor Tim was quite amazing, and we loved his facilities. We're going to start there the first year. And if we get 3,000 people that want to come next year, then we're going to have to go somewhere else, obviously. But Meadowbrook. And you don't have to go to church or be a Christian to go there. Just come on and have some fun, and buy these for your gifts for your kids, your grandkids. Tell them to come down for a day to get motivated to start their year right.
OcalaLeadershipConference.com. It's coming up on January the 30th, and we'll be talking about it more as we get closer to the date. So mark that down. Check that website out today. All right, so often as I cite some studies here on the show about retirement, I might go to the Center for Retirement Research. It's a pretty big deal in Boston. They talk about nothing but retirement. Alicia Manel is the director there, and they just recently interviewed her, and they said, what is the key to a successful retirement? And she said 2 words: don't retire. I was like, what?
That's awful.
I know. So she said, she went on to say, she goes, work as long as you can and get your top Social Security payment. That means you'll have a shorter time to support yourself and a better chance of success.
I'm going to have to Google this, Chica. That is, if she's trying to sell something, nobody's buying in.
I couldn't believe it.
Oh my gosh.
You're trying to help people retire, and your advice is don't retire. Okay, so I get it that the shorter you need your money, the more possibility of success, but that's really not the message. The message that we had at the beginning of the show today was, you know, you've worked your 30, 40 years for what? To give your money to your kids, you know, so they can pull up to your funeral in a Maserati? What is that?
Yeah, that's so weird because, you know, across the country, advisors are trying not to have their clients spend their money. And, you know, I think it's a selfish thing. They should be spending their money, and you should show them a way to spend your money. But every time you spend money, guess what? The advisor makes less money.
They take a hit, yeah.
So because you're pulling money out, they don't get a fee on that anymore. And maybe that's why, or maybe there's just advisors out there that fear it for you. If they fear it for you, then you shouldn't be working with them, because in our office, we stand up and we say, let's figure out how to retire you earlier than you ever planned. Let's start spending that money, and let's make sure, let's look at the plan for the next 30 to 40 years in retirement. If you live that long, does your money last till the 90s? And we show you the path. We show you the way. We talk about the taxes that are going to be involved. We show you everything. And it's mind-boggling. It's not the first time I've actually heard this, Randy, but people are saying retire later, and I'm thinking, why? What if you wake up tomorrow and you don't get to take that extra breath? What was this all for? If we can help you do it now, why would we wait? I mean, that's the definition of insanity.
I've seen some people interviewed in retirement, and they ask you, what's your biggest regret in retirement? And their biggest regret usually is, I should have retired earlier, because I'm enjoying myself. I'm enjoying myself. I'm enjoying my life. Why didn't I do this at 65 instead of 68? Why didn't I do this at 62 instead of 65? That's what people in retirement are saying. So let's use that as the model. And I mean, even if you were to come in and you think you're 5 years from retirement, you're going to go at 65 and you're 60 now. And Cherise says, yeah, that's we're on track for that. Or what if you were 63 and you wanted to retire at 65, and Cherise says to you, you can go now if you want to. That's a great meeting. I love the idea of your job when you look at somebody and say, you can retire now.
I know. It is incredible. I think that's my most favorite part of the job. And all the advisors, they say the same thing. They're like, when we tell people they can retire now, they can turn in the keys to the employer, walk out the double door, collect their last paycheck, and just have the leverage. It's called power. You have the power to do it when you are so sick and tired of being sick and tired. You're like, I'm out of here, coach. And they leave because they already have a plan ready to go. And so a lot of people just come in just wanting to know, can I? And if I can, then that's fantastic. And then some people walk in like, can I? And we're like, no, you can't. We're going to tell you what you need to do to be able to do it sooner than later.
But then you've got a plan.
And you got a plan. It's all about a plan. 1 out of 5 people out there have plans, Randy. It's ridiculous, that number. And that's just because we stick our heads in the sand. We set it and forget it. We think nothing's going to ever happen to me. And then finally you retire, or something else happens that forces you to retire. Maybe you get an ailment, or you're just getting older and your employer's like, okay, we want to let you go. You're getting paid way too much. I can hire 2 people in your place, and then you're out. So have a plan before those things happen, because they happen all the time.
Yeah, we would love to have that kind of a meeting where we look at you and say, hey, the math works. Give you the thumbs up. Now you've got the power. You can say, I can go back to work on my own terms, or I can leave. And this is what we would love to have the opportunity to talk to you about. Let's do the math on your retirement.
Yeah, can you retire now? Let's do the math. I like it.
833-368-3680, 833-368-3680, or website zinniawealth.com. unspent.com. All right, so when we bring up the topic of annuities, some people just go, nope. They put the cross up like a vampire. You know, it's like, don't talk to me.
I know.
It's crazy. And one of the things that we try to bring out here is that there's a purpose for all of your different investments, all of your different financial vehicles within your particular portfolio. An annuity is not built for growth. An annuity is built for something else. Well, Kevin Lum is a CFP, and he's got a YouTube channel, and I admire him a lot. I think he's a very common sense kind of guy, and I think he really brought it out just recently with this.
Annuitized income won't maximize wealth, but it can maximize spending confidence. The average person with an annuity spends twice as much money as someone with a similar portfolio invested in the market. Now, the portfolio owner ends up richer, but the annuity owner feels more secure, even if they end up with less money.
Bingo. There it is. The two roles right there. One is for confidence and guaranteed income. The other is for growth. And I think he brought that out. And Charisse, we want to have a little bit of everything in our retirement portfolio.
Yeah. So as I'm thinking through this, Randy, he said a couple of things. Mm-hmm. Number one, he's a CFP. And everybody loves a good old CFP because they got that extra license, right? Mm-hmm. And he's talking about annuity sales. The second word he said was annuitized income.
Right.
So I am not a fan of annuitized income, but I'm a fan of what he's saying. Why don't you define
that for me? What is annuitized income? Can you give me an idea?
So I kind of call it a bad word in my office, but I understand why people do it. But things have evolved and changed so much, you don't have to do it that way. But he's saying that, which I thought was interesting. It means when you leave your employer, you get a pension. So what happened is it's really a lump sum of money that's going into an annuity, and they're annuitizing it. And so you lose the principal, right, day one, to get larger income checks for the rest of your life.
Okay.
But typically after you die, after 10 years, there's nothing going to your beneficiaries unless you did an option with the pension and your employer. Hey, if I die, I want to give 50% to my spouse or 75% to my surviving spouse.
Got it.
Or 100%. That means you're taking less now.
Okay.
So annuitizes income stream. We are turning on the income.
Okay.
So you when you have a pension, that's an annuity. That's what he's talking about. But you could actually come to a CFP or somebody like me or insurance agent, anybody, and get an annuity, take a little bit of your chunk of money, put it into this annuity and annuitize it for a higher income today and now. But I've kind of beat that up over the years because there's so many other things we can do if you are a real wealth manager that actually implements a bunch of buckets with a bunch of different assets, where this guy, Kevin, says it can lower your wealth in the future but give you confidence. We've figured out how to raise your wealth in the future, give you confidence, and give you growth.
Okay.
So when you think of annuities, you think of safety. You don't think of growth. But a lot of these annuities out there, you can have growth in them and income and then still maintain a principal.
And liquidity, too.
And liquidity.
Right.
They've evolved. They've changed over the last 7 to 10 years. It's a beautiful thing. But you never want to put all your eggs in one basket. But I will tell you, the annuities definitely give you confidence, because when the market is crashing, so you have two buckets. You have your confidence bucket and you have your I hope bucket, right? Mm-hmm. And your confidence bucket is the annuity. It's the money market account. It can be the bond. I don't put the bond in that bucket anymore, but you can kind of think of it that way. It's the notes out there. So it's your safe money that takes less of a hit or no hit, so that you know those dollars are sitting there and you're getting that income. When that hope bucket, I hope that bucket works out for me. When it crashes and burns, let's say you got $1 million in a confidence bucket, your income plan bucket, and then you have $1 million in the growth bucket. Well, if timing's not on your side, your $1 million can go to $500,000 in a heartbeat and then take 15 years to get back to even. But if you didn't really need that money because you have this confidence bucket that you're living off of, then you're going to keep your emotions down. You're not going to sell when the market goes down. And you're probably going to have a bigger legacy in the future because you don't have to touch that money till later use that money later for inflation. So that's kind of the simple buckets, confidence bucket and I hope bucket. And so we want to make sure the confident bucket is full enough so that you don't make bad decisions when the I hope bucket doesn't work out, right? So that's the easiest way I can chop this up.
Love it.
But you need to have both buckets. And in those buckets, there's more buckets, by the way, because you just don't want to have an annuity in just the S&P 500 a growth bucket. You want to mix inside of them. You want a little bond, you want a little money market, you want a little CD, you want a little annuity, right? So you have that income. And in the growth bucket, you want some of those private equities, you want some of the S&P, you want some of the Amazons, you want some of these other things that are out there. And so when you mix it all up, it does create a very diversified portfolio. And not all wealth managers like us do that and split it up.
Well, I think that one of the things that he said there, and we talk about this all the time, the confidence to spend, where he said people with an annuity. And if I were to ask you if you want, would you like a pension? Of course, everybody wants a pension. It's a check for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And that gives people the confidence to spend because you know that bucket's going to get filled up every single month. Well, that's kind of what an annuity does. And he said the same thing. People with annuities spend twice as much as people who don't. They have that confidence to spend because that bucket gets filled up every month. If that's something that's interesting to you, let's talk through it, see if it's right for you, go through all of the pros and the cons of it all. 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680. Our website, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. And there's a gold box there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. That is a no cost, no obligation meeting. We just sit down, take a look at what you've done to save for retirement, what you want to do in retirement, what your time frame is, and let's get all those questions out on the table about Social Security and Medicare and legacy planning and taxes, all that goes along with it. Let's get it all out on the table. 833-368-3680 or zinniawealth.com. All right, Charisse, a lot of us are going to retire with a 401k. It might be our biggest retirement asset. The question is, what do you do with it? How do you make it a paycheck? Well, you generally have a couple of different choices. So our list today is 3 things that you can do with your 401k at retirement. So let's kind of go through the list and the ups and downs, the pros and cons of each one.
So 3 great things to consider with your 401k at retirement. Number 1, you can leave it. But if you leave it with your employer after you leave, well, there's still going to be fees inside of it, whether you believe it or not. There's no exit strategy. The market crashes. It's not as easily accessible to grab when you need cash flow. And there's no plan. So we don't recommend leaving it because nobody's really doing a whole lot inside of it. So number 2, what to do with your 401k when you retire? Cash it out. And so I don't recommend cashing it out because if you got $1 million 401k sitting there and you cash it out, you can say a big chunk of that is going to Uncle Sam. And then you still have to create a plan. You still need to invest it somewhere and you got to work on the taxes because now it's in a different tax category. So what do we do about that? And number 3, roll it out of the 401k to an IRA, which is to me, ding, 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 the number 1 decision of all decisions, because now you can go search for a financial advisor that you like that can create that plan for you. You're paying them to create a plan for you. And then you can roll that 401k over to the IRA. You can keep fees down and now you can really start to say, hey, okay, I want to put a little here. I want to put a little here. And hey, maybe we start to roll our IRAs over to a Roth. But the whole point of rolling it to an IRA first is that you don't pay the taxes on it, right? It's like, you can move it and roll it. If you leave it, you don't pay the taxes on it, but you don't get anything else. If you cash it out, you got to pay all the taxes on it. And then you still got to figure out a plan. So number 3 is clearly the best strategy. Roll it to an IRA, interview a couple of advisors that understand retirement planning, not just wealth managing, and then start to consider how much of this do we roll from an IRA to a Roth so we can get potentially into a lower tax bracket later. What kind of investments? We need our bucket of confidence investments and we need our bucket of hope investments. Our here money now we're going to live on and our later on money we're going to live on and our legacy plan. So these are the 3 strategies when it comes to deciding what to do with your 401k. And you can pick any one of them. Just make sure you pick the right one, the right door, everyone.
Well, one of the things that I got out of what you just said there is many people will use this term. I have a 401k plan. And that, to me, implies that it's a lot more than what it is. A 401k is a place to put money. It's a place, hopefully, to grow your money. But that's really it.
Yes. It's not a plan.
It's not a plan. It's not a 401. A 401k is part of a plan. It's part of your retirement plan. It is not the plan altogether, because when we talk about the three things that you need, protection, income, growth, a 401k doesn't do all that, especially income, does it?
It doesn't. And some 401ks, if you want monthly checks, they're not going to send you a check every month.
No, they're not.
Right? So that's not much of a spending plan. They're not going to talk to you about what is a spending plan. How do we protect us from inflation? How do we make sure that income check goes up every year? So leaving it at 401k is not the answer. And I get a lot of people, Randy, that love their TSPs. People have 401ks, 403bs, TIAA-CREFs. They're like ready to move it. But these TSP clients, they swear to it like it's the Bible of financial planning. You get these funds, but eventually you are going to make mistakes. It's not easy to get the funds. And I know they're adding more funds for you to choose from, but that is not a plan. So you really got to really think about, okay, I did this before I retired. Why should I be doing this in retirement? It's just like when you age into Medicare, you have an employer plan and you have the option to come over to Medicare and get a plan and a private plan there. And do you do it? And 9 out of 10 times it makes sense to leave your employer plan health insurance and go to these Medicare supplements, because people can save $100 a month, $200 a month. I've seen people save $800 a month by doing it. So you just got to investigate, look at the options, and not set it and forget it and think because it's done well for you during your accumulation phase of your life that it's going to be doing just as good for you during your decumulation phase of life when you're pulling money out.
So when you look at somebody across the table and say, Sharice, I really it's been good to me, this plan that I've got with my employer, my money's been going up, I kind of like this, and they're not thinking about fees. Do you find that the employer plans have higher fees and you can do something about those fees if you roll to a personal IRA? Can you get down to lower fees?
Absolutely. So let's say you're going to go alone. You're not going to move your money to a financial advisor. If you have a fund at a 401k, let's say you have a target retirement date 2020 because you're retiring. I almost guarantee that 2020 retirement target date fund, if you leave it there for the next 10 years and just let it sit there, you're going to be paying more in fees than just coming over and move it over to Fidelity and a cash account getting 4%, and or just shoving it into a S&P 500 iShares exchange traded fund. I know for a fact you're going to pay less by doing that. So why would you leave it back there? And I just say it's laziness, or you're afraid of advisors, or you've heard bad news and you don't trust anyone. But don't manage your own money in retirement. That could be a really big hazard and mistake. That could cost you millions, hundreds of thousands by one mistake, a tax mistake, an investment mistake, just a not knowing mistake, a stressful mistake, right? Just having somebody to rub shoulders with, have ideas, come to and complain every year, or come to, hey, I want to spend more money every year. How do I do it without running out of money? Like having that conversation. I do believe finding the right advisor, the best fit for you. It doesn't have to be Zinnia Wealth Management. Yeah, we want you to come see us. But if you don't like us, find somebody else that does stuff like us that you can relate to, because I really feel like somebody in your life, it's very valuable. And then if you pass away and you have a surviving spouse that doesn't take care of this stuff, to leave that burden to your surviving spouse without them really knowing the plan, it's just not a good way to go and enter retirement or leave retirement.
Well, we'll give you a free assessment. We call it a portfolio x-ray. All you have to do is call or use our website, zinniawealth.com. Hit the gold box. It says complimentary retirement consultation. That's really a meeting to talk about your retirement. No charge, no obligation there. Or call 833-368-3680. Again, 833-368-3680. Let's do that for you very, very soon. Sharice, that is all the time we have on this segment. I'll give you the last word.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. The weather is getting all sprucey and where the fire pits are rolling. We did our first s'mores event with the kiddos this past weekend, and looking forward to the holidays. Thank you for tuning in each and every weekend. And as usual, live by design and not by default. And we'll see you here next week.
This has been Retirement Coffee Talk. To find out more about how the strategies we've discussed on this program can build the retirement you've been wanting, call Zinnia Wealth at 352-368-3680 or visit us online at zinniawealth.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC. a registered investment advisor. The firm only conducts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded from registration requirements. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Insurance products are offered through Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC, Florida license L078655, and Sharice Rivers, Florida license P037744. Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, and Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC are affiliated entities. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the podcast and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this podcast is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Any client experience discussed on this show are unique to that client. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities or other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. References to specific investments should not be construed as being past specific recommendations. The returns for various indices discussed in this podcast do not represent the performance of the firm or any of its advisory clients. Returns do not reflect the impact that advisory fees will have on an investment. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. All investment strategies have potential for profit or loss. Different types of investments involve higher and lower levels of risk. There is no guarantee that a specific investment strategy will be suitable or profitable for an investor's portfolio. Historical performance returns for investment indexes and/or categories usually do not deduct transaction and/or custodial charges or advisory fees, which would decrease historical performance results. There are no guarantees that a portfolio will match or outperform a specific benchmark. Investments in fixed income products are subject to liquidity risk, market risk, index rate risk, credit risk, inflation risk, purchasing power risk, and taxation risk. Because bond prices fluctuate continually, their yields change constantly.